Welcome to the Well-Nourished Mother podcast. This is a show for women who desire a deeper, more mindful, and meaningful pregnancy, birth, and motherhood experience. In this space, we bring so much reverence to the rite of passage that is the maiden to mother journey. I'm your host, Lauren Fortuna Flock, founder of Nest and Nourish. I'm a mother, an ex-nurse turned birth worker, and a trauma-informed somatic coach with a fiery passion for birth prep and motherhood prep that blends the head and the heart. Join me for inspiring conversations with experts, mothers, and all-around badass wise women, exploring all the ways we can nourish ourselves, body, mind, and heart, in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood. This space will help you cultivate the knowledge, practices, and resources you need to be the most embodied, vibrant, authentic, intuitive, and well-nourished mother you deserve to be. So welcome. Let's do this. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Well-Nourished Mother podcast. I'm excited about this one. I feel like I say that about all of them, but I'm excited about this one especially because I'm sharing about a topic that I am obsessed with and have been for many years now. But we'll get there. First, I want to share that today was the last group call of a 6-month Matrescence educator apprenticeship program. That's a mouthful. That I've been completing. So it was the last day of a 6-month apprenticeship. And when it ended, of course, I was feeling a mix of emotions. There was a bit of grief and sadness that it's over after all this time. I'm definitely going to miss our Thursday morning calls. But there was also a lot of excitement and energy and hope about what's to come from this. It was this feeling of like arrival, or instead of an ending, a beginning, really. And then I came down here and I pressed record because this episode is my final assignment. I'm doing my homework live in real time with you, which honestly feels exactly right because the assignment was this: what's the gift I received from this program? And what is the task? What is my task moving forward to bring that gift to the world? And we have free reign to do this in any way we can dream up. And my answer to both of those questions led me straight here to this mic, to this space, to you. So this episode has a few layers to it. It's a teaching episode. We're going to go a little bit deeper into my favorite topic, matrescence. We're going to talk about what it is, what it looks like to be genuinely guided through it. This episode is also a behind-the-scenes look into my world and the work I've been doing around this. And it's my final assignment, like I said, submitted publicly, imperfectly, and with intention. But first, let me back up a little bit. So I've been a doula for about 4 years now, though if I'm honest, I've been doing it seriously as a business only in the last maybe 18 months, or maybe it's 2 years now, something like that. And even before that, long before I ever called myself a doula, I was already collecting breadcrumbs along the way, leading me to this work: certifications, trainings, courses, carefully studying and collecting titles with devotion and intention. And to be honest, rarely taking any of it fully off the shelf into action. Hello, ADHD. For example, I did a holistic nutrition diploma way back in 2015 that I genuinely thought I was going to change the world with. It opened doors to so many other, more holistic modalities and areas of interest: chakras, German new medicine, Reiki, coaching, online business. But of course, I kind of put it back on the shelf and continued on with my very safe role as a registered nurse. But then becoming a mother myself in 2021, which cracked something open in me completely. Something, suddenly I wasn't just curious about this work, I was ravenous for it because now I knew from the inside what mothers were actually moving through. It led me to certifications in full spectrum doula care, somatic coaching, not once, but in 2 different containers, both a year-long and a 12-week deep dive. It led me to more trainings around the female and maternal nervous system specifically, and honestly, a million other courses along the way. All of it was leading somewhere. I just didn't have the full picture yet. What I did know was that I wanted to offer something different, not just standard doula support, but something more holistic, more integrated, more attuned to the full complexity of what it means to become a mother. And I call it holistic mother care. And the more I sat with mothers in the most tender, most disorienting, most sacred moments of their lives, the more I understood that the tools and knowledge I was accumulating weren't separate threads. They were all weaving toward the same thing. So since 2021, when I had my own baby, I've been building out that picture even more fully. I completed training with the Matrescentric Way, which is Chelsea Robinson's powerful framework for centering the mother in our care and understanding maternal mental health through a truly maternal lens. I took a training called Mother Centered. It's an internal family systems, or AKA parts work, informed framework for understanding maternal mental health, which completely reframes what we so quickly call disorders in mothers as protective responses to navigating an enormous transformation, matrescence, inside a culture that was never built to support them. And most recently, like I said, I've spent 6 months inside The Village, which is Jessie Harrold's Matrescence Apprenticeship program. She is one of the leading voices in the field, I would say. And I will soon get to add certified matrescence educator to my list of qualifications and titles. And here's the thing I have to be honest with you about. For a long time, I kept all of that tucked away. All of my knowledge, all of my wisdom. I've been quietly accumulating knowledge, telling myself I wasn't quite ready yet, that I needed to know more, understand more, be more certain before I could claim any of it out loud. But this past year, and especially these past 6 months, something shifted. I stopped asking, do I know enough? And started asking a different question. Who is waiting for what I already know? And the answer, as it turns out, is a lot of mothers. So I'm sharing all of it now. The years of study, the trainings, the apprenticeship, the million books consumed, the embodied practice, the hundreds of hours spent sitting with mothers as they find their footing in the most transformative season of their lives. It doesn't belong tucked away. It belongs here. It deserves to be spoken about and shared more freely. And I'm sharing my training not to impress you, but because I think you deserve to know that the person holding space for you in this podcast and in the work I do takes that responsibility seriously. Motherhood is a rite of passage, and rites of passage deserve guides who actually understand the terrain and have some skills to help guide you through it. So today's episode is part personal reflection, part teaching, and part invitation. We're going to talk about what matrescence actually is, what a certified matrescence educator really does, at least my version of it. And I'll share some of what this transition can look and feel like and what real support through it all can look like. If you've been around here for a while, this won't be the first time you've heard me mention matrescence. I've brought it up with guests. I've had Jessie Harrold and Chelsea Robinson on the show to talk about matrescence. I've woven it into conversations. I've circled around it from different angles, but today I want to go a little deeper. Today I want to give it the full episode it deserves. Because if you're somewhere in the middle of becoming a mother, if you feel like you've lost yourself, or you're grieving something you can't quite name, or you're wondering why nobody warned you that this would shake you to your very core, I want you to know what you're moving through has a name. It has a shape, and it makes complete sense, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. And that's what we're talking about today. So, what is matrescence? Matrescence has definitely been having a moment right now, and I'm genuinely glad. It's a word and a concept that deserves airtime, but like anything that starts to gain traction, it can get watered down pretty fast. Turned into a buzzword, a caption, a way of saying motherhood is hard with fancier vocabulary. And I want to give you more than that. So we'll start with the basics and then move into something deeper. So a bit of the history. The word matrescence was coined by medical anthropologist Dana Raphael back in the 70s. She observed something that seems almost embarrassingly obvious once you hear it, that just as adolescence describes the developmental transition from child to adult, there's this parallel process that happens when a woman becomes a mother. It's a genuine developmental shift. It's not just a lifestyle adjustment. It's a fundamental reorganization of identity. And then for roughly 4 decades, the concept was largely set aside. It's only in recent years, through researchers like Dr. Aurelie Athen, Dr. Alexandra Sachs, and practitioners and educators like Jessie Harrold, Chelsea Robinson, and so many more that deserve to be named, that matrescence has started to be taken seriously as a field of study, as something worth studying, worth mapping, and building a real body of support around. So matrescence is definitely having a moment right now. There was that recent campaign in the New York Times by the company Peanut. They were trying to get the word added to the dictionary because, yes, there is always those evil red squiggly lines under it. So I'm glad it's having its moment. It deserves it. So here's what the research and the beautiful work by so many of these leaders in matrescence tells us. Matrescence is not the fourth trimester. It doesn't end when your baby sleeps through the night or when you start to feel like yourself again in your body, or when you return to work, if you do at all. The full transition into a maternal identity, the complete developmental process of matrescence, takes time. Some say upwards of 2 to 3 years, some say longer, some say it lasts forever in some ways. And it's so much bigger than learning how to keep a small human alive. It is an identity shift. The woman you were before, her sense of self, her relationships, her priorities, her body, her inner world, all of it gets turned over. Some things return, some things are put up on a shelf for a while, some things don't return at all. And some things emerge that you never expected: capacities, depths, gifts, a different way of moving through the world. But here's what I think is the most important part of this, the part that Jessie's work and the work of the village really illuminated for me. We've known for a while that matrescence happens, that it exists, that it's a developmental phase we all go through in some way. It's universal and also unique. But what we haven't had until very recently is a clear understanding of how it happens, what it can really look and feel like, the shape of it, the territory of it, the phases of it. And when you don't understand how a process unfolds, you can't really support someone through it. You can only watch them struggle and call it normal. Oh yeah, it's hard, but it's normal, which is kind of exactly what we've been doing to mothers for a really long time. We live in a culture that rushes mothers. 6 weeks and you should be healed, 3 months and you should be back, a year and you should have it figured out by now. And mothers who are still in the thick of the becoming, the identity shift, they're still disoriented, still grieving, still finding their footing, and they're told implicitly and explicitly that something is wrong with them. And here's where I want to pause and say something important, something that I think gets missed in a lot of the current conversation around matrescence. Rates of postpartum depression and anxiety are genuinely high, disgustingly high. That is real. And they are high in large part because of the culture we're living in, the isolation, the lack of support, the pressure to bounce back, the loss of the village. You know, I take perinatal mood and anxiety disorders seriously. They're real, they are significant, and they deserve proper diagnosis and care. And there is a massive, messy middle that gets swept into that category far too quickly. Mothers who are struggling, disoriented, grieving, lost, who don't have a clinical disorder, but who are in the thick of this profound identity transformation with no map and no guide. They go to their doctor, they describe how they're feeling, and instead of being told, you're in the middle of a rite of passage, here's some support and education, they're handed a diagnosis, maybe a pill, or worse, they're just sent home and told they're fine. Neither of those is the right answer for a mother in her matrescence. Research actually shows that simply knowing about matrescence, understanding it as a developmental process, having language for what's happening, is protective against postpartum mood disorders. When a mother can orient herself to the phase she's in, when she understands that what she's feeling has a shape and a name and an arc, something shifts. The panic can soften, the shame can loosen. Maybe she can breathe just a tiny bit more. That is the power of this work, but it's not just naming it. It's also understanding how to move through it. So this brings me to the question I really want to answer today. What does a certified matrescence educator actually do? At least my version of it. Because I want to be honest with you about something and share something that I've really been noticing in this space. A lot of the current discourse around matrescence, and I say this with love because I'm glad the conversation is growing, but it stops at naming it. It tells you that matrescence exists. It tells you the identity shift is real. It validates that this is hard, and that matters. That's genuinely important. But naming something is not the same as like moving through it. Or naming it is not the same as guiding someone through it, supporting someone through it. So what I do, and what this work and all my years of compiling knowledge around this has trained and equipped me to offer, is guidance through the actual terrain, the highs and the lows, the bliss and the discomfort, the moments of profound opening and the moments of profound undoing. I'm not here to hand you information and send you on your way. That's not what the educator in Matrescence educator really means. I'm here to walk alongside you as it unfolds in your body, in your life, and in your identity. I bring my time as a doula, holding space for the most raw, most liminal moments of a woman's life. I bring my training as a somatic coach because this transformation doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your nervous system, in your body, in your breath. I bring the frameworks and the map, and I weave all of it together into something that isn't just education. It's guidance, it's coaching, it's walking with you side by side, shining a light on the dark corners you maybe didn't even know to look at. So let me give you a simplified, very simplified taste of what that can actually look like, because matrescence, especially matrescence within a rite of passage framework, it has a shape. It has a kind of arc, and understanding even the broad outlines of it can be orienting when you're in the thick of it. So the first thing I support mothers with is reckoning, just orienting to what is actually true right now, not rushing past the disorientation, not trying to fix it or optimize it, but instead we're slowing down enough to actually see the changes that have happened to your body, your relationships, your sense of time, your identity, your daily rhythms, your inner world. So much changes so fast in early motherhood, and we're expected to just keep moving. We rarely get the invitation to stop and say, wait, let me actually take this in. Let me actually look at this. Let me take in the full scope of what has shifted for me. And I use so many different tools and practices to help you through this process of reckoning, of taking stock of what has changed for you. Then there is the grief. And I want to spend a moment here because this is the part that I think is most overlooked and most misunderstood. When I say grief in this context, I don't necessarily mean tragedy. I don't mean something went wrong. I mean the quiet, accumulating grief of the million little things that have changed or that you've lost or that just feel different. Your hot coffee gone cold every single morning because someone always needs you the moment you sit down. The favorite pair of jeans that no longer fit the body you're still learning. The spontaneity to just get up and do whatever you want at any time. The version of this, of being a mother that you imagined it would be, that feels a little bit different from what it actually is. The friendships that are quietly shifting, the woman you were before, who you loved, even with all her imperfections, who is no longer quite there when you look in the mirror. You chose this. You love your baby. You're grateful for it all. And you are still allowed to grieve. Both of those, all of those things are true at the same time. And holding that paradox without like collapsing one side of it is some of the most important work we can do. And yet most mothers are carrying that grief completely alone, in the dark at 3 a.m., wondering what is wrong with them because nobody told them it was a normal, expected, healthy, and uncomfortable part of this transition. That is what I want to change. I want to bring this grief to the light and help women move through it and work with it instead of push it down and try to ignore it, only for it to like jump scare you later on in the most inopportune times. Okay, so after we befriend the grief, and sometimes woven all the way through it, comes what many traditions call liminal space, the in-between. You are no longer fully who you were, but you haven't yet arrived at who you're becoming. And this place is deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Our culture has absolutely no tolerance for it. We are not taught to be in the not knowing. We want resolution, forward motion, goals and plans and answers, and we want it all wrapped up nice and neat with a pretty little bow. But liminal space is not neat and tidy, and it's not a problem to escape. It's where the transformation actually happens. It's messy. And part of my work, particularly through a somatic lens, is helping mothers anchor into this phase, not push through it, anchor into it through self-tending or self-care practices, through ritual and rhythm that offer grounding when everything feels unsteady, through learning to nourish yourself first, not as some luxury, but as the actual foundation from which everything else can grow. When a mother is resourced in her body, when she feels held and supported, she can begin to tolerate the not knowing, the messy middle. And in that increased tolerance, that increased capacity to be in the discomfort of the in-between, possibility starts to open. And then, sometimes slowly, sometimes in sudden flashes, she starts to discover herself again. Not the self she was before, something new, someone new. Who am I now? What do I want? What lights me up? What is mine to contribute to my family, my community, and to the world? There's a creativity that emerges here, a fire, a renewed sense of agency and possibility. And this phase asks for something that our culture almost never offers mothers: witnessing. To be seen by community in her new self, to be welcomed back, changed, expanded, deepened, rather than expected to slot back into who she was. That witnessing is the final threshold of the rite of passage, and it is almost entirely absent in modern motherhood. We don't have spaces to be witnessed in who we've become as mothers. So this is the work. This is what a matrescence educator holds, at least my version of it. And it's just a taste. But this is what I am now bringing fully, intentionally into everything I offer you. The knowledge was always there, but now I'm finally taking it off the shelf and committing to being more vocal about it. And I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I was in my own in-between place with this work, knowing I had something to offer, but not quite being able to step fully into it. I was like hovering in that uncomfortable place of, I know what I'm being called toward, but I haven't fully arrived there yet. And these last 6 months changed something for me. The fire ignited, the pull became impossible to ignore. And for the first time in a long time, the question stopped being, am I ready? And started being, what the fuck am I waiting for? So, the assignment that prompted this whole episode, Jessie's final ask of her village graduates, was this: what's the gift you received, and what is your task moving forward to utilize that gift? So the gift was the map, Jessie's map, a deeper understanding of how matrescence unfolds, a beautiful, rich framework for the work I do. It was also a community of women who are as devoted to this field as I am. And honestly, the gift was permission to trust what I know, to trust what I bring to the table in this space. And it was permission to stop waiting until I felt ready enough, and permission to simply begin. And the task, well, you're listening to it. The task is sharing my voice, sharing my knowledge, putting what I know out into the world, stepping fully into the role, into this new identity that I've spent literal years apprenticing towards in different ways. Not someday, not when the conditions are perfect, but now, right now. This episode is my assignment, and by pressing record, I completed it. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of it. I'm also building something, a space for mothers who want to go deeper into their own matrescence experience with real support, real community, and a guide who understands the terrain. It's coming soon, and I'll share more when it's ready. But if you'd like to join the waitlist now, send me a DM on Instagram at Nest and Nourish, or go join my mailing list on my website, www.nestandnourish.ca. And make sure you're following along on Instagram, like I said, at Nest and Nourish, so you don't miss when it's announced. And if you're a perinatal professional, a doula, therapist, yoga teacher, midwife, anyone who works with mothers, and this conversation, this episode, this topic is calling out to something in you, please go look up Jessie Harrold and The Village. She's incredible. Her work is incredible. And I cannot recommend it enough. It changed how I understand this work, and it will change how you show up for every mother you serve. So thank you once again for being here and for listening. If you have any questions about anything I talked about today, please reach out. My door is always open. My virtual door is always open, and I am eager and ready and willing to hold space for you and chat more about this. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be ever so grateful if you would leave a review on Apple or rate the show wherever you're listening from. It really does help this show grow and blossom. All right, see you next time.